You must excuse me for looking wild, or at least more wild than I usually do. The reason for that is that I'm living in a quite wild place. I'm living at the moment with my partner on the island of Rüden. When I say island, it's a sandbank really. It's 2.5 kilometers long, 300 meters wide, surrounded by the sea. Over there is the Greifswalder Oi, over there is Greifswald, over there is Peenemünde, and behind me is Rügen. There is a lagoon, there is the sea. I say it's a wild place because half of it is forest. That's where I'm sitting now. I would have done this little video down closer to the seashore, but it's very windy. Our job here is to look after the birds, to look after the island, to stop people coming on it and vandalising, which people tend to do, and to give guided tours. Part of my job is to wander around the island all day long, checking on things, repairing fences, making sure that the birds are okay, and seeing where everything lives, where the otters are, how many there are, where all the birds are, where they're nesting. And I like doing that. It's been a long time since I ever called anywhere home. I don't have a home. I have many different homes. I have a home in Wales. I have a home in Brandenburg. I feel almost now that I have a home in Vietnam. And I certainly have a home here. I have a bed, a room, everything that's mine is here. And it stays here and has been here for almost 5 years now. It was a while ago too that one of my friends christened me the Floating Wanderer. And I like that. The idea of floating through life, not in a hippie sort of way, but in a birdie sort of way, with intent. That intrigues me. Looking for things. And being a wanderer, well, that is looking for things. So I'm quite happy to be a floating wanderer. And I write as I float. I write as I wander. And I am a storyteller, so I tell stories as I float and wander. And one of the stories I'm going to tell you now. I found many different versions of it, so this is mine. And it's the tale of how the blackbird became black. Because once, long, long ago, before even I was thought of, the blackbird, who goes by the name of Turdus Merula, thanks to Mr. Linnaeus, was not in fact black but white. How he became black, that's the story. The bird, the blackbird that wasn't yet black but was still white, was snuffling around, scrounging around, foraging around on the forest floor looking for food, for worms, for bugs, for spiders, to eat. And he looked up and he saw a magpie flying back from somewhere, and in the magpie's beak was something very, very shiny. The bird watched and saw the magpie fly off again. And when he came back, he had something very shiny once again. The bird, the blackbird, who wasn't yet black but was white, was intrigued. So the next time the magpie flew up, the bird flew up to his nest. And when he flew up to his nest, he snuck in and he saw inside a hole in the tree. It was full of jewels and bright things, shiny things, gold things, silver things, things that looked nice and pretty and precious. And the bird, the blackbird, who was not yet black but still white, was intrigued. He was so intrigued that he was still there when the magpie returned. And when the magpie returned, he was less pleased to see the bird. And when he saw him, he said, "What are you doing here?" And the bird said, "Well, I came up, I was curious, I wanted to know what was in here. These are such beautiful things. You have such taste. Where did you get them from?" The magpie was not stupid, and he realised that if he didn't tell the bird who was standing in front of him where he found them, then the bird would more than likely come along and steal them from him when he was not there. So the magpie told the bird, the blackbird who was not yet black but still white, the following tale of a prince, the Prince of Riches, who lived under the earth. He had so many riches he had to hide them in caves. And he kept them deep, deep, deep down in the cave, but the magpie one day had found them. And the magpie had learnt that if he were to gain the trust of the prince, the prince didn't actually mind if the magpie took one or two little trinkets every now and again. And so he did. He then told the bird where this palace was to be found, where the entrance was to go under the earth to find the palace where the Prince of Riches lived. But he also told him that he must be careful not to touch any of the jewels before he had found out and got the trust of the Prince of Riches, because the Prince of Riches did not like thievery. So, having found out where the caves were, the bird, the blackbird who was not yet black but still white, flew off to find it. And when he found that it was dark, it was late, he went into the first cave and he thought, this will be a good place to sleep, here I will be safe, so he slept. When he woke up the next morning, he was amazed to find himself surrounded by jewels, beautiful trinkets, lovely brooches, gorgeous, gorgeous crystal-cut emeralds and rubies. But he remembered the words of the magpie and he didn't touch any of them. And he went further down through the cave and came to another cave, and in this cave he found silver, plenty of it, silver coins, silver cups, chalices. But he remembered the words of the magpie not to touch anything, and so he continued his journey down, deeper, down under the earth, past many, many more caves, full of much more beautiful, lovely, gorgeous, shiny, bright jewellery. But after a while he came to one cave, which was full of gold. And at the sight of the gold, the bird, the blackbird who was not yet black but still white, could not contain himself. The gold was so lovely. He jumped into it as if it were a bath. He splished and splashed around in the gold, scattering coins here, scattering coins there. And he laughed and threw them all up in the air. And then he found one, a little golden ring, which he found to be so beautiful that he wanted to keep it. And so he held it in his beak. And then he heard the most terrible sound, the most awful roar, a thundering, and the cave shook. For the prince, who didn't like thievery, had put a demon in charge to guard all of the caves, and the demon liked thievery even less than his master. And he liked thieves even less than that. The demon saw the bird, the blackbird who was not yet black but still white, and chased him. The bird itself screeched, turned and fled to get out of the cave, scrambling over the gold, over the silver, over the jewels. It was difficult to get flight, but eventually it did take flight. But the demon had caught up with it, and the demon had roared so loudly that what was inside of him was pouring out of his mouth. And what was inside of him that was pouring out of his mouth was fire. Black, red, orange, burning, blazing flames. And they caught the tail feathers of the bird, who was not yet black but was still just about white. And the feathers caught fire, and all of them burnt, smouldering away, leaving just behind them the smoke. But the bird got out fast enough, and he managed to put himself out. But he turned around and saw that from the fire and the smoke, he was black. And from that day on, all of the feathers that grew back on his wings, on his back, on his breast, on his head, and on his beautiful tail, were no longer white, but they were black. The only thing that hadn't burnt and had remained the colour that it was, the colour of the jewel that he held, the gold trinket, the ring that the bird had held in his beak. The bird, who was now black, had a golden beak, just like the ring that he held in it. And from then on, and I've seen this many a time, if ever you sneak up or suddenly come across a blackbird snuffling and foraging in the ground in front of you, and you catch it unawares, it will screech and it will jump and it will fly off in panic because it doesn't want to get burnt again. All it wants to do is eat its worms and its bugs and its spiders in peace. And that is the end of the story of the blackbird who became black after being white.